Hi there, it's me, Miss Smith, and I'm here to review the Geography of the 13 Colonies, number 2, for those of you in pre-AP U.S. history who need to complete this map so that you can recover missing credit. Um, this one is pretty straightforward. You really just have a map and a chart that I'm going to go over with you, and you'll pause at the appropriate times so that you can complete the questions and submit. That's pretty much it. It's really straightforward. There's really just 4 questions on this one. So we have a map here, and this is a map of the 13 colonial regions in 1766. And what we're trying to figure out are a couple of different things. So the first question that you have after you've looked at the map for a second. So before we even get to the question, there are some things I want to point out because the map may not be of the best quality. It does say that these are black textured lines. That is one of the questions. Your job is to identify what you believe those black textured lines to be. It does list the English colonies in America prior to or before 1763, because those black textured lines in 1763 all have something in common. And it says that this arrow right here is pointing to Indian country. So on the other side of these textured lines is Indian country. So those are some things to keep in mind. And the very first question actually is, according to this map, which 2 groups of people were settled on the lands to the west of the 13 British colonies? So on your map, you should have a compass rose, which we don't, but it's okay. I am not directionally challenged. So we have never eat sour watermelon. So if we are going west, west is this way. So the question is asking which groups were settled on the lands to the west of the 13 British colonies. The British colonies are here along the Atlantic coast on the eastern seaboard. And it's asking who is here, basically. So really you have one group identified. The other group is actually listed on the map. So you're just going to have to take a bit of a closer look to identify those 2 groups. The second question, number 2, is asking what geographical feature do you think the black textured lines on the map represent? So perhaps it is some type of landform. That's perhaps what it represents. And then the second part of that question is, how might this geographical feature impact where the British colonists established settlements? That's something to reflect on as you prepare to answer question 2A. And that's map 4. That's pretty straightforward. We're going to move on to the chart. The chart is about the geography and climate of colonial regions, and it has New England, Middle, and Southern colonies. It talks about their respective geographies and their respective climates. Question number 1 is asking, based on the information in the chart, which colony do you think found it easier to establish farmlands, South Carolina or Massachusetts? So you have to choose one of the 2. That's the first part of the question. And then the second part of the question is to explain why. So if you say it's South Carolina, then you would need to explain why. If you choose Massachusetts, then you would need to explain why also. In order to effectively explain your answer on this one, you're going to have to have a good handle on which region each of these colonies fall into. So you're going to need to know, is South Carolina and New England middle or southern? And same thing for Massachusetts, in order to be able to actually effectively answer the question and, do a good bit of analysis. And then last but not least, another two-part question. What is one geographical feature that all three colonial regions have in common? So in order to answer that part of the question, you're going to want to scroll back up here and see, okay, what do all of these have in common? So they all have soil, for example, but in New England, the soil is rocky. In the middle, it's fertile. And in the southern colonies, it's fertile and moist. So they all have soil, but different types of soil. So obviously, soil is a commonality, but the type of soil is not necessarily a commonality. So you're looking for a geographical feature that they all have in common, and then you need to identify why you think this feature is important to the colonist. So you're looking for something that they have in common, not kind of in common, and then you need to explain why you believe it was important to the colonist. So just a quick, you know, couple of questions or a few questions. They are, not just, they're pretty straightforward, but they do have multiple parts and layers that you are expected to respond to. But if you use the resources provided here, you should be able to do so in a relatively short amount of time. So make sure that you respond accordingly in the Ed puzzle so that you can receive credit and recover that on your Geography of the 13 Colonies number 2 questions for the map and the chart.